Good afternoon. My name is John Downing, and I'm a board member of Itasca Waters and director of Minnesota Sea Grant. It is my pleasure to introduce our practical water wisdom host, Sandy Buttweiler. Sandra Buttweiler is a familiar and trusted voice in Minnesota and North Dakota broadcasting, known for her work with KFGO and WDAY. Over the years, she's built a strong connection with listeners across the Fargo-Moorhead region through her warm, engaging style, and her genuine interest in the stories and people that shape local communities. With a background in radio journalism and on-air hosting, Sandra is known for her thoughtful interviews, clear communication, and ability to make every conversation feel both informative and approachable. She now joins Practical Water Wisdom as host following the long and valued tenure of Brian Whittemore. We are deeply grateful to Brian for his years of dedication and are delighted to welcome Sandra as she carries this program forward with her own warmth and insight. Hey, welcome, Sandy.
Good afternoon, and welcome to Season 5 of Itasca Water's Practical Water Wisdom series, which focuses on issues related to water and ways to resolve those issues. I'm your host, Sandy Buttweiler. Today's episode is called Ecology, Disease Prevention, and Control of Floodwater Mosquitoes. Itasca Waters is a nonprofit volunteer organization headquartered in the Itasca-Edwaters region of Minnesota for the purpose of educating folks about the value of clean water for the environment and the economy. Itasca Waters has provided 15 years of protecting and promoting clean water in the region, brought in $3 million in grants and contributions, all of which went for water science and education, educated thousands of students and community members, strengthened local conservation capacity, and been recognized as a key nonprofit for lake and watershed stewardship. Although we are located in the headwaters of the Mississippi River, the Great Lakes, and Hudson Bay, you don't need to live near us to join us. Please consider becoming a member of Itasca Waters by using the QR code on your screen or going to itascawaters.org/donate and use the guest login. Membership is quick, secure, deductible, and is only $30. Now, we thank these partners who have been with us all along for helping Itasca Waters offer our Water Wisdom series. Dr. Jon Oliver will speak to us for about a half hour, and then we'll take your questions. To submit a brief question, just click on the Q&A button on the bottom of your screen and type it in. Today's program is being recorded and will soon be available on our website, itascawaters.org. As we mentioned, the subject for today is ecology, disease prevention, and control of floodwater mosquitoes, and our expert presenter is Dr. Jon D. Oliver. Dr. Oliver is a public health entomologist at the University of Minnesota School of Public Health, specializing in mosquitoes, tick-borne diseases, and how they're transmitted, including the role of wildlife. In this webinar, he'll discuss floodwater mosquitoes, common in northern Minnesota, the environments they thrive in, how homeowners can reduce mosquito populations, and ways to lower disease risk while enjoying the outdoors. So let's get to it. Here is Dr. Jon Oliver.
Thank you for the introduction, Sandy, and thank you to the Itasca Waters team for inviting me to present on one of my favorite topics. So, I'm Jon, and I'm going to present on floodwater mosquitoes today. So, today I'll be talking about some of the resources available to learn about mosquitoes in the state, Aedes mosquito biology, and some of the common species you're likely to encounter in the north, mosquito habitat, a little bit about mosquito-borne diseases in Minnesota, and ways to prevent bites and control mosquitoes around your property. So there are more than 3,000 species of mosquitoes worldwide, and in Minnesota we have at least 51 established species. Only about half of these are considered to be disease vectors or nuisances. In the orange box, I've included some vocabulary words that I thought were interesting. So a vector is an arthropod that transmits a pathogen from one organism to another. Here's a few resources that are valuable for learning more about mosquitoes and mosquito-borne diseases. I'd like to particularly point out the Metropolitan Mosquito Control District. While it's based in the 7-county metro area, it is a premier mosquito control organization, and they provide a ton of valuable information that will be really potentially useful to people throughout the state. So let's talk about mosquitoes. So floodwater mosquitoes are members of the genus Aedes. These are the floodwater and container breeding mosquitoes. The graphic at the bottom shows the life cycle of these mosquitoes. And what sets these mosquitoes apart and makes them so successful is that they're adapted to lay their eggs not directly on the water, but just above the water line. So this egg-laying adaptation really is important to the life cycle of the mosquitoes because it kind of allows them to hedge their bets. If the water decreases, those eggs remain stable on the shore line or above the water line, ensuring that the mosquitoes only hatch, or the larvae only hatch, when the water level actually increases up to that level of the eggs. So while dry, Aedes eggs can last for up to a year. And as I mentioned, they require immersion in water to actually hatch. So this adaptation has made Aedes mosquitoes extremely effective at colonizing northern habitats like we have in Minnesota. So once those eggs are immersed in water, they hatch into the aquatic larval stage, commonly called wrigglers. These larvae undergo 4 molts, getting progressively larger over time, called instars. Overall, the larval stage lasts up between 6 and 10 days, depending on the temperature of the water. These larvae are filter feeders, and unlike many aquatic insects, they do not have gills. Instead, they have an air siphon, so they have to actually get up to the surface of the water to breathe. After the larval stage, the mosquitoes develop into pupae or tumblers. This stage is comparable to the cocoon of a moth or a butterfly, in that the adult mosquito is developing inside of that structure. Unlike a cocoon, this is a mobile stage. So in order to avoid predation and to get access to air, these can actually swim around in the water. They kind of flop around. And so they've got little air siphons on the top that allow them to breathe. This stage is usually brief, lasting 1 to 4 days, again, depending on the water temperature. After pupation, the adults emerge. They're the flying reproductive stage. All stages of adult mosquitoes can feed on nectar from flowers. However, females require protein in order to produce eggs, which they get from feeding on blood. During her lifetime, a female may feed as many as 3 to 5 times, depending on the species, and will lay eggs after each blood feeding event. Mosquitoes travel different distances depending on species. Some are weak flyers, some are strong flyers. So the eastern treehole mosquito, Aedes tricereatus, tends to remain near its hatching grounds, while Aedes vexans, a much more common species, can travel 10 miles or more. So here we can see the morphological differences between males and females. As I mentioned, the males don't bite because they don't produce the eggs themselves. They have these bushier antennae with long mouth parts around the proboscis, while the females have short mouth parts around the proboscis and less fuzzy antennae. So the males use those fuzzy antennae to better detect pheromones produced by the females so that they can find them more easily. Aedes females usually only mate once in their life, and then they store the sperm for their entire lifetime. Male mosquitoes emerge first from the pupa and then wait for the females to emerge so that they mate with the females right away after they come into the world. Males locate same species females by measuring their wing beat frequency, and they have a special organ called the Johnston's organ that allows them to detect that wing beat frequency. Mating occurs really quickly, about 14 seconds. So some Aedes species are adapted to laying eggs next to very small bodies of water. So these are container breeding mosquitoes. Similar to floodwater mosquitoes, the eggs are glued right next to the water or just above the surface of the water. And these mosquitoes will lay their eggs in man-made containers as well. Some of the mosquitoes that have adapted to using man-made containers are these synanthropic species. These are undomesticated animals that require humans to thrive. Mosquitoes such as the yellow fever mosquito and the Asian tiger mosquito are major disease vectors worldwide. So in Minnesota, we've got a couple of different sort of timings for different groups of mosquitoes when they occur during the year. We have the spring Aedes mosquitoes. These are mosquitoes associated with snowmelt. There are about 18 different species of these in Minnesota, and they complete their life cycle early in the year, and then the eggs undergo diapause, so they sort of hibernate until the following spring when they hatch out again. Some of these species are associated with disease transmission. Excuse me. So that map in the lower right shows the number of mosquitoes, spring Aedes mosquitoes captured by date, with the green line showing 2005 and the gray line showing the 25-year average. 2005 was a wetter year than the previous drought years, but the mosquitoes were still recovering from several years of drought. We can expect this number to, the number of mosquitoes captured to approach that 25-year average as the weather moistens. So this data is from the MMCD and is for the metro area, but likely we'll see a similar pattern elsewhere in the state where there's been drought. Here are a couple of the species that are common for these spring Aedes mosquitoes. The woodland snowmelt mosquito and the serrated mosquito. These inhabit habitats common to the north, such as snowmelt pools or acidic bog environments, abandoned beaver ponds. A lot of these springtime mosquitoes are aggressive biters in that they're hurrying through their life cycle compared to some of the warmer weather mosquitoes. And some of them are associated with disease risk. Here's a picture of a couple of snow pools. Mosquito eggs will hatch at about 39 degrees. So while the water's still quite cold, there's an MMCD staff member collecting the tiny first instar larvae from a large snow pool in the East Metro. This shows a peat bog in northern Minnesota. This is habitat for several species of spring Aedes mosquitoes. And so, given that there's a lot of this sort of habitat in parts of the north, there are also a lot of those mosquitoes around. So, summer floodwater mosquitoes. There are 11 species in this group, including container breeders. These mosquitoes will complete multiple life cycles over the course of the summer from about June through September. These mosquitoes overwinter as eggs, and they are the most abundant mosquitoes in Minnesota. The most common mosquito in the state is Aedes vexans, the inland floodwater mosquito. This accounts for about 75% of mosquitoes sampled in the Twin Cities and probably a comparable number in the north. It is a very common mosquito. It has a wide distribution across the northern hemisphere, so you can find it in Asia and in Europe. And its larvae live in temporary, shallow pools in a variety of habitats. This is not a significant disease vector, but it is an important local vector for dog heartworm. Luckily, not a major human disease vector. So it is most active at dawn and dusk, or immediately after dusk. Here are a couple other floodwater species that are common to Minnesota. The plains floodwater mosquito and the minute floodwater mosquito. These mosquitoes may also transmit viral diseases, but they're not really considered major disease vectors. They are mostly active at dawn and dusk, but can be active throughout the day, especially if it's not a super sunny, hot day. They will be active. So this shows a typical habitat for some of these summer Aedes mosquitoes, temporary woodland pool. Floodland and bogs also make good habitat for some Aedes species. Finally, onto the container breeders. This is the eastern treehole mosquito. It is a significant disease vector in Minnesota. These are naturally found in tree holes, but they also thrive in human-made containers, and the vast majority of these that are out flying around will have been bred in a human-produced container. They're weak flyers. They don't go very far from their place of birth, and they are day active. So here's a couple examples of tree holes. That's exactly as it sounds, a hole in the tree that collects water. Often there will be vegetation in there that the larvae can feed on, or they can feed on the bacteria and fungus kind of fermenting the vegetation. But far more commonly, container breeding mosquitoes are breeding in man-made containers. Common culprits include tires, especially. They trap water really well. Tarps, especially like crinkled up tarps that are holding small pools of water, bird baths, rain barrels, these kinds of standing water containers can produce a lot of mosquitoes. So we also have a couple of invasive species, as in species that are not native to Minnesota. Aedes japonicus, the Asian rock pool mosquito, was first collected in Minnesota in 2007, but is now established across the state. This mosquito is of concern because it bites both mammals and birds, and so diseases like West Nile virus that are present in birds can be transmitted, potentially be transmitted from birds to humans on subsequent feeding events. Another invasive species in Minnesota is the Asian tiger mosquito. This is a subtropical mosquito that is associated with a number of severe diseases like dengue virus, chikungunya, Zika virus, yellow fever. These mosquitoes are imported annually into Minnesota to tire recycling facilities, mostly bringing tires over from Asia to be recycled. And they cannot survive the winter here. And there's no evidence of disease transmission occurring from these mosquitoes, but they are around. So I'm going to talk about some of these pathogens. These are mostly viral diseases, especially those that affect humans, are viral diseases in Minnesota. So West Nile virus is the most common mosquito-borne disease of humans in Minnesota. It is carried long distances by birds, which become infected with the virus. Some birds, especially corvids, are really negatively affected and can die of West Nile virus. We had a bit of a resurgence in 2025 with 122 cases of this disease reported in Minnesota. So, floodwater mosquitoes very rarely transmit West Nile virus. Mostly, West Nile virus is transmitted by Culex mosquitoes, such as Culex pipiens, the common house mosquito. These mosquitoes are quite different from floodwater mosquitoes in that they breed in very stagnant water in containers, and they overwinter as adults. So if you find an adult mosquito in the winter in your mudroom or off of your business's loading dock, they're likely going to be a Culex mosquito. These are the primary urban vector for West Nile virus here, but in more rural areas, other Culex mosquitoes fill that role. Additionally, unlike the Aedes mosquitoes, these are much more nocturnal. These are nighttime biting mosquitoes. So a lot of people are exposed to West Nile virus but don't get sick or don't get significantly ill. About 1 in 5 people exposed develop West Nile fever, which is often attributed to a summer flu. It has very flu-like symptoms, and people tend to recover very well from this. But about 1 in 150 exposed people develop serious illness. Serious illness from mosquito-borne viruses usually takes the form of encephalitis. So that is an actual infection of the brain. These cause high fever, severe headache, neck stiffness, and then neurological symptoms. Of the people who develop encephalitis, about 10% will die. Additionally, people 60 years or older are at a greater risk of having serious illness from West Nile virus. Lacrosse encephalitis virus was first identified in a case from Minnesota, despite being named after Wisconsin, where they were treated. This disease is transmitted by the eastern treehole mosquito, Aedes triceriatus. It's in the animal population, primarily in rodents, squirrels, and chipmunks. In the last couple of decades, we've seen a real decline in lacrosse encephalitis cases in Minnesota, thankfully, with only 1 case reported in each year between 2023 and 2025. It's mainly present in the southeastern part of the state. However, the mosquitoes are present throughout the wooded parts of Minnesota, and so there is, continues to be risk potentially present in the north. Of particular concern, this disease affects primarily children. Nearly 90% of cases are under 18. Subclinical infection is likely common, just like with West Nile virus, where many people are exposed but don't actually develop severe illness, maybe just like a summer flu. But the surveillance system tends to capture these more severe cases when people end up in the hospital. And so almost all the cases that are recognized are these severe cases. Amongst the severe cases, these encephalitis symptoms cause a fatality rate of about 1%. And then of those people who recover, about 15% have long-term neurological side effects of infection. There are other rarer diseases present in Minnesota transmitted by mosquitoes, by Aedes mosquitoes. Jamestown Canyon virus is one of these. There have been only 82 cases reported in Minnesota. And these are all 82 cases, again, are severe disease. Most likely, the vast majority of people exposed do not get particularly sick. However, those that do get sick usually are the ones who get encephalitis or meningitis. And of those, there's about a 2% mortality rate, but as many as half of the people who recover have long-lasting neurological impacts. This disease, Jamestown Caveman virus, is transmitted by these spring ADs. And looking at that map on the lower left, you can see that these are well represented in northern Minnesota. There are also probably other viruses present, but they can be quite rare. Finally, dog heartworm. This is a non-viral disease. It basically never affects humans, almost never affects humans, but it's actually a nematodal disease, so it's like a little worm that causes this disease. It's transmitted by a wide range of mosquito species to dogs. The larvae, called microfilariae, can be easily controlled by antiparasitic drugs, which is why even when mosquitoes aren't biting, it's recommended that dog owners continue to give these antiparasitic drugs to their dog in order to kill the larvae so that there's less buildup of adult worms. The adult worms actually kill the dogs by clogging up their circulatory system, especially their heart. So I'm going to show a picture of a dog heart with a mass of worms, so you can look away if you'd like. So here's a mass of worms, and you can see that it really, in this fatal instance, has completely clogged up the heart. So if you have dogs, heartworm medicine is important. So how do we prevent mosquito bites? Insecticides, EPA-registered repellents, clothing, physical barriers such as mosquito nets or window screens keep mosquitoes out. EPA-registered repellents are highly effective. These are well-tested repellents, such as DEET, oil of lemon eucalyptus, or permethrin. Permethrin is actually also an insecticide that you apply to your clothes and allow to dry before you use them. It is extremely dangerous to cats when wet, and so should not be used probably on a property with cats. There are also specific repellents, permethrin-based repellents that are available for dogs. There are no repellents available for cats that are shown to be effective. In terms of clothes, light-colored clothes can help keep mosquitoes away because of the way their visual system works. They tend to notice darker colors more. Long sleeves, pants, and shoes can help limit bites from mosquitoes. Wearing clean socks can be important. Mosquitoes are actually attracted to foot odor, and so if you have clean socks, it might reduce your attractiveness. Permethrin-treated clothing and physical barriers like head nets can be used in places where mosquitoes are more abundant. There are tons of products out there that are more or less ineffective for controlling mosquitoes. These include a lot of essential oil-based repellents that are commonly available. There's a ton of these. Many of these are totally ineffective or not very effective, and none of them last for very long. So I would stick with those EPA-registered repellents. Citronella plants and candles, while repellent can be repellent to mosquitoes, the sort of density required is not achieved by just having some candles. And so they're not considered effective mosquito repellents. Ultrasonic noise generators, like that purport to make dragonfly-like noises, are not effective at scaring away mosquitoes. Natural predator habitat, such as bat boxes, bird houses. I mean, bats and birds can potentially eat a lot of mosquitoes, but they're not going to eat enough to have a significant impact on mosquito numbers. Similarly, bug zappers are fun, but they're not going to reduce mosquito numbers to any appreciable extent. Finally, pesticide control of adult mosquitoes, like fogging, is not really appropriate for a home property. It can be used like on a larger scale to control, to kill adult mosquitoes. But if you're using it on a small area, mosquitoes are just going to come in from the neighboring areas. soon after the fogging event. So it's not really a very effective control measure. What is effective, though, is controlling the larvae. Larval habitat control is the most effective method at reducing mosquito numbers on your properties. So these are aquatic larvae, and so removing standing water is the best way to control mosquitoes. That includes dumping out bird baths on a regular basis, screening water storage like rain buckets, ensuring that your gutters are draining so there's no water pooling in the gutter, and then filling tree holes if they're present on the property. There are a number of products available for mosquito control for larger areas of water like ponds, and some of these are quite safe and effective. For example, Bacillus thuringiensis israeliensis is a bacterium that's usually put on like corn cob, and you toss it into the pond. It's highly effective against all aquatic fly larvae, so it does affect like midges, black flies, non-mosquito targets, but it has very little effect on other insects or animals. It's not known to be toxic or carcinogenic to humans, and most of the formulations of this product are applied every 14 days. This website has lots of information on different pesticides. So this one is, I think, appropriate for homeowners to use if they have ponds. There are also insect growth regulators that are also another very safe product. The most common of these is methoprene. These mimic insect hormones in order to disrupt the development of larvae. These are highly toxic to most all aquatic invertebrates, and so there is some side effects where it's killing the wrong, non-mosquito insects. It has low to moderate toxicity depending on the fish species. It's largely non-toxic to birds, mammals, bees, as long as you're not chewing on the briquettes, and has no known impact on humans. Finally, there are a ton of chemical pesticides out there. These are not recommended for home usage. Some of these have very significant toxic or carcinogenic side effects and can persist in the environment for long periods of time. They're also not, they're not a great idea to use around your property for sure. The Metropolitan Mosquito Control District puts out an annual report, the most recent being from 2024, and they lay out in the appendices of this report all of the different products they use. And so if you need examples of safe and effective mosquito control products, I would suggest looking at this MMCD report to see the labels of the specific products that they rely on. Yeah, so thank you for letting me talk, and I'll pass this back to Sandy and Jan.
Wonderful. Jon, thank you very much. Some excellent information there for us today. Let's get to the questions. Handling this part of today's program is Jan Sandberg, Itasca Water's board member and Education Committee Chair.
Hi, Sandy. Thank you very much.
Hello, Jan.
Hi. Hello. Welcome to today's Q&A section. And first of all, please submit your questions using the icon for Q&A. We won't use the chat function. I'm going to read questions out loud, and they will be answered by Dr. Oliver, hopefully. I'm pretty sure he has lots of information. We might combine some similar questions. We may not get to all of your questions, but if you have questions after the meeting, please send them to info@itascawaters.org. So we're going to begin the Q&A, but I'm going to take privilege and make a comment. To those of you out there who think that those diseases cannot happen to you, please think again. My 3-year-old son in the early 1980s developed encephalitis and was in the hospital for over a week. It happens, and it could happen to you. So please take note of what we've been told today. I appreciate that. Okay, first question. Aside from age, oh, that's convenient, do we know what factors put people at higher risk of serious illness from, West Nile virus?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jan. Certainly, people with any kind of immunocompromised health issues are gonna have problems with any of these diseases. But other than that, I'm not aware of particular factors. I think age and susceptibility to disease are probably the most important of those.
Thank you. So when, if ever, should homeowners consider professional mosquito control services? You mentioned a few things in your talk that the homeowners can do. Is there more that professionals can do?
Yeah. Professionals, they're going to be professional, hopefully. And so they should have a good eye for detecting potential mosquito habitat, larval mosquito habitat, and, knowing how to intervene in order to reduce the potential for larval mosquitoes growing on your property. Additionally, a lot of these the pesticides that I mentioned, including the very safe pesticides like BTI, they do require specific measures to be effective and or safe. And so if homeowners aren't comfortable applying those sorts of products, then the professionals will be very comfortable and they'll have a good idea and hopefully be good at explaining, what the different qualities of the different options are.
Okay. Thank you. So you've talked a lot about what an individual homeowner can do, which I think we all appreciate, but what can communities do to collectively to reduce mosquito populations?
Yeah. That's a great question. So communities can be actively engaged at reducing mosquito populations. Reducing the numbers of mosquitoes originating from just your own property is going to have limited effect if your neighbors are not also participating. Many of these mosquitoes could travel at least a mile, including some of the disease-carrying mosquitoes. So it's important to have community buy-in if to the extent possible. So some communities organize like mosquito patrols where people will, look around for tire piles and those sorts of things, potential mosquito habitat in people's yards and help them clean it up if necessary. So and then of course, actually implementing a mosquito control program is usually done at the municipal level. And so if there's enough demand or concern, then cities can be influenced to provide pest control services.
Thank you. I love this question from Karen. Mosquitoes seem to bother my husband much more so than me. He sweats more easily than me. Could this be a reason why he seems to be a mosquito magnet?
Yeah, so it's a really interesting topic. Why do some people get bitten more by mosquitoes than others? And the same goes for ticks. Some people are tick magnets and some people almost never get ticks. And uh, there is not like a great one fit answer to that question, but mostly seems to be related to the human skin microbiome. So everybody has a different, slightly different population of bacteria that live on their skin naturally, it's part of our body. And these bacteria will produce different odorant chemicals. So, like foot odor, for example, is part of the human microbiome, and it's actually common to nearly all mammals. And so mosquitoes that are seeking out a mammal host tend to be attracted to that foot odor smell. But there's also, any number of other bacterial cues where the mosquitoes are smelling basically just slight differences in people's skin. Um, there's some indication that potentially the foods that people eat could affect the skin microbiome, but they're probably not directly affecting the mosquitoes. So if you eat a lot of garlic, it's probably not going to have any sort of short-term effects on keeping mosquitoes away.
Thank you. And too bad about the garlic because I love garlic.
I
And
like it too.
it's fascinating to me. We see so much in the literature about the gut biome, and I've very rarely seen anything about skin. So that's a great thing for people to read up on if they want to. Okay, next question. How do public health agencies monitor mosquito populations and disease risk?
Yeah, that is a great question too, and it does vary quite a lot from place to place. Minnesota Department of Health is quite active in monitoring mosquito populations, but as they move further into more and more rural areas, it is harder to know exactly what's going on at any particular time. So mosquito populations are monitored by trapping usually. So there are different kinds of mosquito traps that collect mosquitoes, and then those mosquitoes can be identified to species by expert entomologists, mosquito identifiers, so that they can determine whether potential vectors are present in a particular area. Additionally, those mosquitoes can be tested for the presence of virus inside the mosquitoes. And so, like during an outbreak of West Nile virus, Minnesota Department of Health or Metropolitan Mosquito Control District will collect mosquitoes, identify those that are likely to be carrying West Nile virus, and then test groups of those mosquitoes together in order to see kind of what proportion of those mosquitoes are carrying the virus. So it's a very, very labor intensive process, and it does take time, and it's hard to do it everywhere.
Sure. Okay, thank you. This next question is another great audience question. I'm not sure I've got the name right. Rayan, I think it's Rayan. So sometimes when I am bitten by a mosquito, it seems to be nothing, no more than a bite. Nothing's red, no swelling, no itching. But other bites are normal, swelling, itching, redness. Does that mean something about the type of mosquito that bit me or something else?
Yeah, so type can definitely affect it. Some mosquitoes will cause more itchy, bigger welts than other species of
Hmm.
mosquitoes. Additionally, your own like immune response can affect how severely you react. So like especially I feel like people who get bitten only rarely, like especially you see kids where they get like really big itchy welts because they haven't been exposed to a lot of mosquitoes in their lifetime. They tend to have more of a reaction. People who are outdoors all the time and get bitten all the time tend to itch a lot less. Additionally, so when you get that itchy bite site, it's caused by the saliva from the mosquito being left behind in your body. You're actually having an immune response, inflammation response against that saliva. So it can depend on how thoroughly the mosquito has fed. If a mosquito is interrupted during the feeding process after it's injected its saliva, it will actually produce an itchier bite than if you allow the mosquito to complete its feeding process, during which time it actually sucks out a lot of the saliva that it initially injected into you. So yeah, there's a lot of factors, could be species, could be how thoroughly that individual fed, and could be like your own immune response and how that is adapted to mosquito bites.
Thank you. And I have no interest in letting it complete its feeding process. Sorry, that is just not where I'm at. Okay, never mind. We'll go to the next question. You've answered this a little bit before, but maybe you can expand on it. The detrimental effects on lake invertebrates, fishes, and birds with the various insect control products that, well, some that are applied to lawns, for example. Can you tell us more?
Uh, well, yeah. So there are thousands of different products, probably hundreds of different active ingredients in the various insect control products that are out there. Some of them can be combinations of multiple insecticides. Um, so many of these, especially chemical insecticides, will have like a much broader spectrum of activity. There are insecticides that will kill, all insects, all arthropods, all
Mm.
invertebrates. So in order to responsibly and safely use those kinds of products, um, you need to carefully follow the labels and ideally have a professional applying those. I don't recommend any of those sorts of products for home mosquito control, especially. Habitat control is by far the more effective method. However, some of those products, like these bacterial pesticides, like BTI, Bacillus thuringiensis israelensis, is very specific to aquatic flies. And so mosquitoes are aquatic flies. There are a few others, midges, bloodworms, maybe crane flies. There are a few other sort of uh, insects that would also be potentially affected, but the BTI is not going to affect the vast majority of the biodiversity. So that product is considered extremely safe, and Metropolitan Mosquito Control District have done extensive like by-kill evaluation or like biodiversity studies in places where they use BTI and have found that the impacts are very small when properly applied.
Thank you. And I think we have time for one more question, but it's, I think for most of us, a pretty important question. Are there long-term trends in mosquito populations that might be due to climate or environmental changes, especially in northern Minnesota?
Yeah, right. So, as mentioned, we've got the Asian tiger mosquito in Minnesota getting imported every year. It's a subtropical species, and so it's not like it's on the cusp of becoming established and surviving the winter here, thankfully. But as winter minimum temperatures have been on the rise for the last few decades, mosquitoes that were found in southern Minnesota can now be found further and further north. And so I hesitate to directly attribute that to climate change, but milder winters are letting mosquitoes that are adapted to warmer environments survive further north. And so we see this with some of these invasive species. It's likely that 50 years ago, the Asian rockpool mosquito might not have been able to survive in northern Minnesota, but now it is established.
Oh, good news. Thank you so much. I think that is all we have time for today. I know there's more questions here, but I am going to send it back to you, Sandy. And thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, Jan, and thank you, Dr. Oliver. Excellent program today. This program will be available soon on our website, itascawaters.org. Please feel free to recommend it to family, friends, and neighbors. Also, we're asking for your ideas about the Water Wisdom series. You can respond to the evaluation form. We'll email you. The next program will be on June 4th, 2026, and feature Dr. W. Andrew Jackson talking to us about the potential impact of fireworks on lakes and other waters. You can register for free on itascawaters.org. While you're on the website, please consider becoming a member at itascawaters.org/donate or follow the QR code on your screen. I'm Sandy Buttweiler. Thank you for watching today.